is thriving for me.
I'm so glad to hear that. And where is your farm?
The farm is in Potchefstroom, so I commute between Johannesburg and Potch.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And when you have a moment, will you be getting to your destination within the next hour?
Yes, I should be.
Okay, so you can maybe put your camera on if you feel like it. You don't have to, but it would be nice to see you. And Pumza, you've got an online, you said, food business that specializes in African cuisine.
Yes. It started as because I also have I'm also a farmer doing free range chicken, but as we continued, we sort of like shaped the business to follow what the market requires. We even now joined. We partnered with Liquor City. We do their online wine deliveries as well. So we sort of like follow what the market needs and the opportunities there. So it started as a free range retailer, and then I added up some products, even some of the bread box products, the dry products, I also list and distribute because they have their indigenous magwinya mixes, dumpling mixes. So yeah, that's what we do. And we're building towards the appetite of the market. And our market is more like the high-end people. People won't go to the township or the farm to get these tripe and cow heels and all that. So we do that for them.
I understand. Where's your farm, chicken farm, Pumza?
The chicken farm is in the Eastern Cape, which we now just doing veg. So we have partners here in Joburg for chicken in Randfontein. Yeah.
I understand. Excellent. And you talked about dumplings. Is that the same as a dombolo?
It's a dombolo, yeah. Bread box is making a very nice, easy to do mix for people like me who are scared of flour and yeast and making a wrong mix. So they're doing pre-mixes for madombolo, magwinya, that is fat cakes for us. So we distribute, it's a dry product. It's a dry product with a shelf life. I think it's 6 months. So will correct me. It's about 6 months plus of
about
dry
12
products.
12 months.
Yeah. So I do dried products for those people, for our local food processors.
Nice. So we do have some interesting food in Africa. And I'm from Durban originally. I've been in Johannesburg for many years, in fact, since the late 1970s. But in Durban, we used to often see the madumbi. And in fact, last night I had madumbi for dinner. And it's not something we have often.
The potato, you mean, the sweet potato?
Mm.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
I know.
In Durban, they call it madumbi. I know it as a madumbi.
Yeah, and it's in Africa. We don't really have it much here, You don't
see it much here, but if we do see it, I like to buy it. But obviously in Durban, it's everywhere. Well, it used to, when I was young, be sold on the streets everywhere. I'm just getting to know you all a little bit now as people join in. I see somebody's joined in with a Huawei P30 phone. I can't see the name of that guest.
Gabi.
Is it?
Gabi, can you unmute and do a quick introduction?
Hello, I'm Gabi, and I'm from Pilau Events. We do cooking, private cooking, catering, and events.
Fantastic. And so we've got a lot of food going on here. I'm getting hungry already. and I see we've got another person,
it's
Mutuatse family.
Yeah, it's Memas Chaba. May you do the honors and the introduction. Memas Chaba, did you find the mute button? Memas Chaba, are you there? There she is. Memas Chaba, you can speak.
Dumelang bahantetele doaba.
Dumelang me. Yes. Rena lebayeng, babua skhoa. We've got Gordon here. and Gordon
Yes.
wants to understand a little bit about your business. I know you've got a good story to tell. Just briefly.
Okay, put it up a little bit. I can't hear so. Just hold on. I just need a voice here.
Yeah.
The
But
volume.
We're good. We can hear you.
We can hear you
Okay.
perfectly.
Yeah.
If you want to put your video
Okay.
on, it will help me if you put your videos on, if you can.
Oh, my video. I'm not good looking, eh?
Look at me.
Yeah,
I didn't even comb my hair.
Tell me
Right.
about it, Charlie.
I just came out from the bath. Yes.
I'm just
That's
doing this. I'm also just doing it for the respect of our guest, Gordon.
Yes, please.
Thank you, thank you.
So phased.
And you look very, very smart and very beautiful. Thank you for showing me who you are.
Oh, thank you so much.
Just a quick introduction, your business in terms of where you come from, just briefly, what you sell
Okay.
and where you're selling it.
Okay, my name is Masechaba Mutluatsi. I started my business 2019. It's growing a little bit. I can't complain. It's growing. I've got resellers in Limpopo, resellers in Durban, resellers, even the surrounding as well. You know, I've created job for people. They are buying surrounding here, Tembisa, Olivenhout, you know, Tembisa, I think I've got a lot of customers there, and in Klerksdorp as well. And I'm in Spa here in Bona Valley, and the other spa in, what is it now? Corporate Park. And then 2 Midwells as well. And I help bottling since of COVID. I'm putting my ginger in the bottles, 330 ml bottles as well.
Excellent.
Because of COVID.
Import told me it's ginger beer you make.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, it is ginger beer. Yeah. You can drink it like Stony. You can drink it like ginger tea as well.
Fantastic. I look forward to trying it one day. I'm sure I'll have the opportunity.
Yes, you'll get it there by Mpom, there at the bread box. I've got it at the bread box as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let me get started. I just want to say I'm not going to go too long tonight. I'm going to go till 7:30.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit longer than 7:30 if we need to. I'm going to keep it very simple and straightforward. Firstly, to tell you that I have got a degree in engineering, in civil engineering, a master's degree in civil engineering, and I've got an MBA degree. So I've been to university for 9 years, and those 9 years taught me nothing. I learned everything the hard way in real life. I started my business in 1988. So that's now, I think, 33 years ago. It's a third of a century ago. I started off with no money. I had no customers. I had no staff members. I had no offices, and I had no products. I had just written a tiny little computer program that I thought was quite nice and that it might help people. And I started my business. And from there, over the years, it has grown and grown. It's had its ups, it's had its downs, and I've taught myself along the way. And today, my business is a market research company, and it does business for very respectable companies like Toyota, like Discovery, like Stefanetti Stocks, like Nestle. And so I have the benefit of 30 years or more of actual experience, stuff they didn't teach you on the MBA, stuff they didn't teach you at university. And so Import asked me to talk a little bit about being an SME, about entrepreneurism. And I'm going to start at the beginning, although all of you have already started your business. And I'm going to end on the most important concept, the thing that will take you from good to great. I'll leave that right to the end. I'm not even going to tell you what it is now. I'll tell you what it is when we get there. Okay, so to begin with, a lot of people ask me, about entrepreneurship. They say, why do you start your own business anyway? And the kind of answers that I get often are, well, the first thing that people say is, I start my own business to get rich. Have you heard that before? That's what they say. I want to get rich. And most don't get rich. A few do. You know, Bill Gates got rich, and Richard Branson gets rich, and even our own president made a lot of money from his days in mining. But most people don't get rich, and many people, in fact, fail. A lot of people fail. So we have to realize that. So people ask me, well, Gordon, are you rich? I say to myself, you know, I am rich. I am a rich person. I'm rich in my experience. I'm rich in the journey I've traveled and the journey I hope to travel. I'm rich in the opportunities that I have found for myself, and I'm even richer for the opportunities that I have, I think, provided for others. Am I materially wealthy? Well, I am wealthier than most South Africans, but that is a very sad statement, because if we look around us, we can see that you don't have to make much to be richer than most. In South Africa or even the world. I have enough. I am satisfied. I don't have a desire to be super wealthy that I don't have to think about money. I will work for the rest of my life in some way or another. I believe that's important. I believe the moment that we have too much money, or so much money that we don't have to think, we lose our purpose. So be always, as an entrepreneur, have an idea in your mind of just how much is enough. And if you're doing very well, that's good, but be generous to yourself and don't ruin yourself with greed. That's on the rich business. Then somebody said to me once, you know, I like to be in business on my own because I don't have a boss. And that's true. I hate bosses. I can't work for a boss. There's something about bosses that just drive me insane. So when I left my company and started my own business in 1988, I replaced my one boss with 3 new bosses. And this is something to remember. When you have your own business, you now have 3 bosses. The first boss is a boss that is a very, very difficult boss. It's called cash flow. It's a boss that rules you day and night and Saturdays and Sundays. And it's the boss called cash flow, and never, ever, ever, ever take your eye off that boss, because he or she, if you is watching you all the time. And the second boss is a very, very, very important one as well, because the second boss is the one that helps the first boss keep sane, the cash flow boss, and that is your customers. Your customers are your boss. And the third boss is also the most important of all, and that is the people you cherish around you, your partner, your husband, your wife, your children, the people who depend on you and rely on the fruits of your labor in your own business. So that's a very important thing to remember, is we always have a boss in our own business, cash flow, our customers, and the people that depend on us. And they're not only our family, they're also our staff members. They're all, in some way or another, our boss, the people that guide us. The third reason why people say they want to go into business is they want freedom. Freedom is a funny word. There was a rock singer way back in the 1970s called Janis Joplin. And in one of her beautiful songs, she has this line. The line is, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. There is no such thing as freedom for an entrepreneur. We always, always have our 3 bosses, cash flow, our customer, and the people that depend on us, our families and our staff. We can't have freedom. Freedom does not exist unless you have nothing left to lose and no more purpose in life. And then a lot of people say that they want to have their own business to earn respect and to earn esteem. And if I ask the general person out there, you know, who do you know in business? They name the captains of industry. They name the people who are the leaders of the huge organizations. They don't name the entrepreneurs. In fact, being an entrepreneur is quite a lonely business. It's very rare that we find fame and esteem. If you want fame and esteem, well, I think you should become a rap singer or a boxer or a famous sports person. Don't ever look to fame from being in your own business. So that's the hopefully a little bit of a start or an introduction to my talk. And I think you'll agree that everything I've said so far is about humility, isn't it? It's not about being arrogant. It's about, I have talked about in richness. Keep it sane. How much is enough? Know when is enough. You now have 3 bosses to answer to. You don't have freedom. And you respect. Well, respect will come perhaps after we pass on, maybe, by the people that we love and have looked after through our efforts as entrepreneurs. You've all started your own businesses, and so you know how difficult it is to get through the administration, getting a bank account, getting a name, getting a VAT registration number, all that stuff. Quite a lot of businesses, small businesses, by the way, shortcut all of that, I've noticed, and they find themselves in trouble down the line. The receiver of revenue is a very ugly person. You must pay your taxes. You must register your companies properly. It's easy to start trading informally, but you get to a position eventually where you can't grow anymore because you've got so many people chasing you and you have so many things to hide that it's not worth it. You can't sleep well at night. If you can't sleep well at night, you can't apply your mind to your business. So we do need to do the right thing and try and make your business as formal and as legal as you possibly can. Then on names, a lot of people ask me this, what do I call my business? It's one of the first things they think about. And I learned the hard way. I called my business Bateleur. Now that's the name of an eagle. And it's taken me many, many years to build the brand name Bateleur, because Bateleur is not an easy name for people to remember. And it doesn't tell people anything about what my company does, which is market research. I have a big competitor. It's now changed its name because it was bought out by a multinational, but its name was Research Surveys. Now that's a good name for a research company. It tells people exactly what it is. It's not a sexy name. It's not a catchy name. It's not a cool name. It just says what the company was.
Can you trademark that? I mean, that's a very general name.
They did trademark it.
Oh.
They did. They did. So, but it's a good question. Keep your name simple. Let your name explain what you do if you possibly can. Having said that, on the other hand, I can imagine 100 years ago when the brand managers at Lever Brothers launched a washing powder called Omo. It means nothing. But they spent a lot of millions to get the brand name Omo into everybody's minds. All right. So yes, Really Tasty Chickens is a good brand name for a chicken company. All right. So there's another problem with a small business is that we're in a country that has so much legislation that works against us. There is nothing really in the laws of our country that help small businesses get started, unfortunately. And I have just said in my previous point, you need to pay attention to the law, because if you become a lawbreaker, it does eventually catch up with you and at least make your sleep disturbed. It might not put you in jail, but it'll at least make your sleep disturbed. But unfortunately, our legislation does not lower the barriers to entry, and it does not make life easy for us. We just have to, unfortunately, put up with it. The next problem is that for small businesses, find it very difficult to borrow money. I have a friend down the road here. He started his business as a thatcher, making thatch roofs. He became a multimillionaire, and he bought many properties, and he retired. And when he retired, he wanted to borrow some money from the bank. And he told me the story. He said, when I started my business, the bank wouldn't lend me money because I had no assets. So I worked without borrowing money, and I built myself up until I had enough money to buy properties, and I had lots of assets. So I retired. And then I didn't have a salary because I was retired. So I went to the bank to borrow some money to do something, and they wouldn't lend me money because I wasn't working. You can never win. the banks will always find a reason not to lend you money. And when they do actually lend you money, boy, you're the first person that's going to have their door knocked on by the bank. So I always recommend to people, if you can get away with not borrowing money, don't borrow money. If you can. It's not always possible. It's not always possible. I run my business on a zero bank overdraft. I have no debt to anybody, no bonds, no leases on motor cars. And yes, I do have friends of mine who are much wealthier and have much bigger businesses, but they have much bigger anxiety, and they've built their businesses by borrowing money. Look, sometimes, especially if you have to buy machinery and equipment, you can't afford that. You do have to buy that. And unfortunately, in my business, the only machines I need are computers. So they're not terribly expensive. So yes, be careful of debt. Here's another thing. Have you noticed that entrepreneurs like yourself, you're full of passion? You get up in the morning early, you work weekends, you work nights, you're thinking about your business when you're in the shower or in the bath. You're completely passionate about it. You eat, sleep, and drink your business. But as you grow and you get staff members to join you, they don't have that same passion. To them, it's just a job. They've got kids to get to school. They've got kids to pick up from school. They've got a meal to make. And a lot of, especially young entrepreneurs or early entrepreneurs, when I say young, I don't mean your age, I mean the age of your business. They expect their employees to have that same undying passion about the business. It's just a job to most people. And you need to realize that and not push them too hard. Make sure that there's a good balance, a work-life balance for your staff. Be realistic and be a good leader. And if you do find yourself in a conflict situation with your employees, and you do treat them unfairly, and they do run to the CCMA, downtown Joburg, believe me, you will waste a lot of time, a lot of money, and you will lose, because the legislation favors the employee, not the business owner. Remember, I talked about legislation. I have been in the CCMA many times in my life. It's never pleasant, and you never get away clean. The employee, no matter how right you think you might be, somehow the employee will always get something out of it, if not win. So make sure that when you employ people, you pick them properly, you lead them properly, you motivate them properly and fairly, and make sure you make them part of your purpose and part of your vision in a way that they can see a benefit to them in their own personal lives. I believe in sharing as a route to growth, creating an environment that has vitality and growth opportunities for everybody. A lot of entrepreneurs don't think like that. A lot of entrepreneurs, let me go back to my first point, want to get rich at the expense of other people. That doesn't work in the long run. It is amazing how important existing clients are. There's an old saying that I've used many times, and that is, a client in the hand is worth 10 in the bush. From the old English idiom, a bird in the hand is worth 10 in the bush, or 2 in the bush. When you have a client, nurture that client. Make sure that client gets you your second client via word of mouth, and make sure that second client gets you the third and the fourth client. Be passionate about your clients. Remember that they are your lifeblood, and don't underestimate just how much time you need to put in to developing that trust that will create the loyal relationship, that will create ongoing revenue from that client, and will create that magic called the word of mouth. The best brand builder on planet Earth is word of mouth from existing customers. And yes, it does pay to advertise. The single biggest problem that most entrepreneurs have is when I ask them, why are you having problems to sell? They say, well, nobody knows my company. Well, if they don't know your company, how can they possibly buy from you? And even if they do know your company, they've got to trust your company. So it does pay to advertise. And excuse me, I have a little formula in my mind it says that for every rand of turnover that I make, I build into my costs 5 cents or 5% for advertising. And we employ a public relations company that costs us about 5% of my monthly turnover. Hello, Mangalusu. Well, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So I know it seems like that, 100 Rand, 5 Rand off 100 Rand or 5 cents of 1 Rand is a lot. But think like that. It pays to advertise. It pays to take every month 5% of what you make and plow that back into, maybe it's a sign, maybe it's a pamphlet, maybe it's a Facebook boost, maybe it's a radio campaign, maybe it's a television advert, maybe it is some petrol money to go and visit 5 new outlets. All of that can be thought of as being advertising money, advertising or promotional money. Okay. I'm old enough to have gone to a school where we had to do Latin, and I did Latin to matric, and I don't know why. I wish I had done Zulu. I went to school in Durban, quite honestly, but that was back in the 1970s. Nobody thought like that in those days. But our school motto in Latin was Incepto ne desistam. Now I'll explain what that means. Incepto means from inception or from the beginning. Ne means do not. So from the beginning, do not. And then desistam means desist, which means in more fundamental English, it means give up. So incepto, from the beginning, ne, do not, desistam, give up. From the beginning, do not give up. When you are in your own business, when you are an entrepreneur, you will find a day, and then another day, and then a month, and then more days where you feel, why am I doing this? I can't carry on. I hate this. My cash flow is so terrible. I've got no sleep. I'm tired. I've had another failure in the laboratory, new product development wise. Do not give up. The Walt Disney, the famous movie maker, he went bankrupt 3 times before turning Mickey Mouse, the little funny mouse, into the world's biggest brand outside of Coca-Cola. Expect to have hard times. There have been times in my business when I've gone home to my wife and said, you know what, we've had such a good year. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to give you a number. We've had such a good year that my co-directors and I have decided to pay ourselves as shareholders a dividend. Here we are, darling, here's R500,000. R500,000. Now, I don't mind what you think. That's a lot of money. And that's a good year. But I've had other months where I've gone to Cindy and I've said to her, you know what, I'm terribly sorry to say this to you, but now for the 3rd month in a row, I'm not going to be able to bring a salary to our household. Yeah, that has happened more times in the last 30 years than bringing home that big check, that big dividend check from a very profitable year. And you have to think positively and get through those hard times. In other words, incepto ne desistam, never give up, always prevail. You see, they never taught us any of this stuff on the MBA. One of the biggest problems of an entrepreneur has is they get stuck in the detail of the work. I met a man, his name was Eitan Rechter. He was an Israeli, and some of you might be old enough to remember those Ituba stamps that you used to buy, Ituba scratch cards. They were scratch cards. Who remembers those? Anybody remember Ituba scratch cards? You used to buy them at Pick and Pay for 2 Rand. You'd scratch them and maybe win some money. This guy, Eitan Rechter, he made a lot of money out of that. He was the inventor of those. And I asked him one day and I said to him, how did you make your business so successful? And he said to me, Gordon, it's very simple. You've got to just rise above it. Rise above it. So if you are in the nitty-gritty detail of making your product all the time, forever, you can never rise above it. You have to find people that you can train to do your job, to allow you to rise above your job. You can't go up if you're stuck to your job. You have to give other people the expertise and the money and the motivation to do your job. And I always say that the role of a manager and the role of an entrepreneur is to always do yourself out of a job. And thereby you will automatically be free to rise up and grow your company. The business of partnerships, a very difficult one. If you don't have a partner in your business, it's a very lonely affair. You don't have anybody to bounce ideas off. You don't have anybody to share the work with. You don't have anybody to laugh with, and you don't have anybody to cry with. However, partnerships can be very bitter things. And some people say to me, do you think I should be going into partnership with my family member? Well, I say, well, that's the wrong question. I'm going to come to what the right question is now. People say to me, do you think I should go into partnership with a friend? It's also the wrong question, because sometimes family members can turn out to be bad apples. Do you trust the family member? Sometimes friends, because they're your friend, you trust them automatically, but you might trust them on the tennis court or the squash court or the golf course. You might trust them at a party. You might trust them in the classroom. You might trust them because they're your friends, but you can't be sure you can trust them necessarily in business. And a lot of partnerships with friends fail just because the trust is assumed. And I personally have had this problem in my life of being in business with with a friend who turned out to be, in fact, untrustworthy. So the right question is, it's good to have a partner or more than one partner in business, because you need to spread the workload. You need to have multiple talents. You need to have multiple energies. You need to have someone to cry with and laugh with. But the right question in choosing partners is, do you completely trust that person? Can you trust that person all the time, forever? And that's the important question to ask. The next thing I want to go on to is that entrepreneurs have this unbelievable desire to please their customers. And very often we end up over-promising and under-delivering. I can do anything for you. I'll have it to you by tonight. Don't worry. But what happens is that customers remember the disappointment. They don't actually remember delivering on the promise. That was expected. They remember when you let them down. Now, I'm going all the way back to my earlier comment, is that we are in business to make our customers unbelievably satisfied so that they talk positively about us and get us new customers. If you let them down, they're not going to talk positively about you. So rather under-deliver. You know what, Pumza, I can only get that to you on Friday. In fact, you know what? I'm actually over-promising. I'm going to get it to you on Saturday morning. That's the best I can do. I hope you understand. And then what you do is you deliver it on Friday morning. Wow. Now your customer's got something to talk about. You over-delivered. I find a lot of competitors, a lot of my customers say to me, entrepreneurs say to me, oh, my competitors are just useless. I've got rubbish competitors. I'm going to win because I'm so good and my competitors are so useless. Never think like that. Never, ever think like that. You know thine enemy is an old saying. Don't be obsessed with your enemy. I believe the right way to be in business is to make love to your customers, not war on your competitors, but keep a keen eye on your competitors. Respect your competitors because they're not fools and they might be just as hungry as you are, just as hungry. So have respect for your competitors and keep an eye on them. You know, I'll tell you a funny little story once. This is a true story. It's a very interesting one about Magnum cleaners. In my early days in Johannesburg, I'm talking about the late 80s now, I lived in a communal house in Rhinefield, Benoni, and none of us had any money and we just survived. And there was a guy there, his name was Mike Craig, and he had no education. I think he had a grade 8. He worked as a salesman for Nampak Tissue, selling toilet paper. And that's true. It's absolutely true what I'm telling you now. And he was a good salesman. He made a living from that. one day he came to me and he said, you know what, Gordon, I've decided to borrow some money and buy a Magnum, a cess for kilo. A quantum, I mean, a cess for kilo. And I'm going to buy a shampoo carpet cleaner. And I borrowed money to do this, and I'm going to start a carpet cleaning company, cleaning homes, carpets in Benoni. And I said to him, but Mike, are you crazy here? He said, look, I said, look at the yellow pages. Look how many carpet cleaning companies are. He said, yeah, that's right. That's what's so good about it, because there's so many competitors. That must mean there's lots of customers. So I said, well, what are you going to call your company? He said, I'm going to call it Magnum Cleaners. I said, but look here, Mike, in the yellow pages, look how many companies are called Magnum. There's Magnum Security, there's Magnum this and Magnum that, and there's so many, Magnum Steel, so many companies called Magnum. He said, yes, that's right. It must be a very popular name. It must be a good name. So he launched Magnum Carpet Cleaners. And he disappeared. I never saw him until 10 years later. I bumped into him in a VZ building in Sandton, a big building. It was late. I'd been visiting an advertising agency there, and I found Mike
Looks like Gordon's frozen.
Yeah, I think Gordon is struggling with connection. I'll check on his phone just now. Just bear with me.
I'm also struggling now. Somebody called on my WhatsApp call, and suddenly the voice is so soft. Gordon's voice is so soft. I don't know how to adjust it back too loud. Ish.
Okay. I think Gordon.
Can everybody else hear me all right?
Yeah, you're back now. Yeah, we lost you when you just about to meet the Magnum Cleaners guy again in Sandton.
Okay, so I met Mike Craig in Sandton in the parking lot. He was busy offloading a whole bunch of night cleaners to do their work that evening in the building, and he had built a multi-million rand business in cleaning office blocks at nighttime. He would sleep during the day, work at night, doing contract work for big buildings in Sandton. He made a huge amount of money out of it. And the point was that he chose a humble business, a simple business, where there were many competitors, and just did it better than everybody else. Can you all hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you for that. All right. So, you know, when you are an entrepreneur, you chase opportunities all the time. That's what entrepreneurs do. We chase opportunities, but sometimes those opportunities can be like shadows. They will just waste time. You've got to be clear as an entrepreneur about which opportunities are going to be fruit bearing and which opportunities are going to just be time wasting. And use your time efficiently. Don't chase opportunities that are going to cost you money, cost you time, make you angry, cost you your pride.
I think we've got a fluctuation on the network. Pumza, are you back? So what I'll do is that I'm just gonna maybe switch off my camera so that we can
just see what's
embed with. Gordon, I will switch off my camera on my side and just maybe ask members Chaba, let's switch off our cameras just to release some bandwidth so that we can help with the connection.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Is it the sound? You're batting to hear me?
Yeah, it keeps on cutting at some point. So I think maybe if we switch off our cameras, at least that will release some bandwidth, and then we'll come on camera as we speak. But we'll let you go through your talk. Okay.
Okay. The next point I want to share with you is that sometimes as entrepreneurs, we spend too much time chasing something that's not going to work. You will learn quite quickly that not all your product ideas work. Not everything works. be very, very mentally in tune with how far you take something before you decide, forget that one. It's time to move on to the next idea. I've given that one its best shot. So remember I said a little while ago, never give up. But at the same time, it's never give up your business. It might be that certain parts of your business you need to actually forget about and take a change in direction if it's not working. Don't beat your head against a brick wall unnecessarily. And another thing that's quite important and interesting, and this is a big one, is don't be afraid to go for big contracts. I've been in a situation in my life many times where I've been faced with a pitch, a piece of business that looks too big for me. And yet we've gone for it. And we get the business. And now I say, my heavens, what are we going to do? Well, what you do is you work at night and you work at weekends and you bring in more people and you do the job brilliantly. So don't be afraid to go for big contracts if they come their way, but be very careful that you don't overcommit yourself on borrowings. Remember borrowings, and find yourself in a position where you've got cash flow difficulties, because big projects have big cash flow issues. Okay. Sometimes when things are going badly in your business, we get a look on our face that says, oh my heavens, I'm not winning. Things aren't going well. I feel so sorry for myself. You know who's the first person who can feel that? Your customers. And you know what they do? They go to your competitors. Never let your customers show that you are battling or you're feeling anxious. Always share your successes with your customers. Keep your failures to yourself and your team to sort out. I'm not a person who believes in you must grow and grow and grow and grow. I've already talked about that earlier. I believe that you must grow up to a point, and then you must be responsible and preserve what you've got and refine what you've got. I believe a good business is one that has a healthy balance between growth on the one hand and preservation and refinement on the other hand. You build something that's good. Why just leave it? Refine it, preserve it, improve it, protect it, and then grow a bit more. So a great solid building, one that will live for hundreds of years, is one that is well designed, is built beautifully, is preserved, and is refined. And a business is no different. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs are afraid to tackle problems and solve them. Things go wrong. Every day something goes wrong, and many entrepreneurs say, you know what, that's a problem I'll deal with tomorrow. But tomorrow comes and there's another problem. Now you've got two problems to deal with. So we put those two problems off until tomorrow. So tomorrow comes again, and now we've got three problems to deal with, because the problem of the day is also with us. Don't be a person or a company that does not solve problems. Kill those problems as they arise. You also sleep much better. I have seen a lot of business people fail and fall from very high positions and lose a lot of money, and sometimes even lose their lives as a consequence of dishonesty. We can see that in our politics and in our country and the world around us. It's actually very easy to not be honest. And I promise you that ultimately, if you do not think honestly, it will come back to haunt you in a very bad way in the future. It's an ancient philosophy, and it has biblical roots as well. Do not think dishonestly. Honesty now provides for sanity later in your mature years. Okay. Excuse me. Now I want to get on to the end of my talk, and I promised you that I would end with the most important thing, the thing that I've seen over the years to be the most important ingredient in growing a business. And it's not any of the things I've talked about. All the things I've talked about so far are important, but they are not the magic golden key to success. I'm now going to share with you the magic golden key to success, and it is leadership. Good leaders are people who are enthusiastic. They show their enthusiasm. They are positive. They create magnetism to the people around them through their enthusiasm, through their positivity. Yet they're also humble. They're not arrogant. We live in a world of selfies. Have you noticed that? We live in a world of selfies. It's terribly arrogant. We live in a world of me, 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 me. Leaders are not like that. A good leader, whenever a good leader's team has a success, the good leader will praise the team publicly and the team will celebrate. When a good leader's team fails, the good leader says, that's my fault. I'm to blame. So, you know, a good leader never ever gets the accolades when there's a success. And a good leader always takes the blame when there's a failure. That's what humility is. A good leader supports his or her staff, is humble. Now, I want to read something to you. We have one of the greatest leaders that we've seen in the last 100 years. Let me ask you the question. Name some of the greatest leaders we've seen in our country in the last 100 years. Well, the last, let me say, few years, just the last few years.
So if it's in the country for the last few years, that's going to be a challenge.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, Mangolisi. Let's say the last 50 years.
Okay, that gives us some room to play.
But it's obvious, right?
Yeah, come on, Mangaliso. Let's hear the
Oh,
audio.
yeah. It's an obvious one, man.
Who is it?
He's like
Who's
a
on your
world
mind?
icon. He's a world icon and he's kind of glorified all over. Mr. Nelson Mandela.
And we call him Madiba, exactly. Now, I'm going to read you something that came from the South African College of Applied Psychology. Now, obviously, Madiba's been dead for a while, but he's been very well studied. And I think there's no argument that he is the icon of leadership. And the South African College of Applied Psychology describes his leadership as having the innate ability to empathize, a strong interest in people and society, wanting to help others and make the country a better place, being an excellent listener and good at interacting and connecting emotionally with people. Now, I wrote a little paper only 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's called Madiba Values for an Engaged South Africa. It was published in Mail and Guardian. I'm going to share this with Impo that he can share it with you guys and you can read it. This is the thing I really want to teach you tonight, is to steal from Madiba some leadership values. Empathy means caring for people. It means having a desire to help others. It means experiencing emotions that match what other people feel. It means discerning what other people are thinking and feeling. So you want people in your company to be highly engaged. You want them to be profitable. You want them to be creating loyal customers. You want them to be focused. As a leader, it's your job to create that energy. You won't get it just by paying them a salary. You need to be inspiring. You need to show your own commitment, your own happiness. You need to create excitement in your business, and most importantly, be grateful, show thankfulness. These are all the traits of a good leader. Bad leaders, by the way, create companies where their feelings are uninspired, frustrated, stressed, stagnant, and tired. Behavior-wise, if you look at your staff members, the people who work in your company, if you're a good leader, you'll find these kinds of behaviors. You'll find employees that have a keen sense of purpose. When you ask them what they're doing, they'll tell you precisely what they're doing in their job with enthusiasm. They will actively listen with an open mind. They will make constructive suggestions. They will share their knowledge. They will display enthusiasm. And in general, they'll have a positive outlook on life and work. As soon as your employees or you are complaining about this, complaining about that, getting out of bed on the wrong side of the bed in the morning, leave that stuff at home. Don't be a negative person. Leaders are never negative. They're always positive people. Don't Don't be challenging. I disagree. You know, that kind of person. Don't indulge in corporate politics. Don't complain. Don't make sarcastic comments. Don't make destructive comments that make people feel like a small person. And don't be seen to be wasting time and effort. Be focused and purposeful. So more on leadership. Good leaders make employees feel that they're cared for, truly cared for. They uphold the values of openness and transparency. A good leader, their staff members always know what they're thinking. Equal opportunity, I don't have to talk about it. This, you know, it's so easy to fall into the trap of favoritism. It's so easy. It's so wrong. Good leaders never, ever have favorites. Everybody is equal. Good leaders inspire teamwork and coordination and cooperation. I'm going on, it's all in this article here. You can get to read it. They lead by example. They are reliable. They are trustworthy. They give recognition and they provide mentorship. Do you know that one of the single most important drivers of highly engaged staff members is the very fact that they can see a career path in your company? If you go and ask, if I take any one of your employees and I say to them, tell me, you're now working for Mangaliso, what are you going to be doing in 10 years' time? And that person says to me, oh, you know what, I think I might be working in the bank. I've always fancied banking. Well, that's not a good answer, is it? But if that person said, you know what, I actually want to be Mangaliso's understudy. I want to be the 2IC of this company. That's my passion. Well, that's a really good career path vision, isn't it? So it's your job as leaders for every single employee in your company, even if it's only one, to get them to see a very clear career path for themselves in your company. That is what will make you successful. Okay. Delegate with trust. Trust people. Give clear direction. Don't micromanage. Most people want to work. Most people can be trusted. Very few people actually want to just sit back and do nothing. Okay, I think I'm finished. The most important part of my talk with you today was to encourage you to think about, study, and practice good leadership principles and good leadership behaviors, and you'll find that that is what ultimately will create a successful business and a successful future for you and many other people that grow around you. I thank you for listening. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Gordon. I think there's so much to think about. Thanks for the talk, especially. I think maybe if I look back into the conversations we've had, we haven't really covered the topic of leadership in a way that you've covered it. And I just want to facilitate the questions, just opening up for questions by raise of hands. Just indicate by raise of hand if you want to have a question that's for Gordon. And maybe just to kickstart, one of my questions, and this is a burning one, actually I've got two questions. One is, I like the formula or the ratio that you gave in terms of spending money on advertising or on promoting your business as maybe a round figure of 5%. But also, having said, do not give up, but also understand the products that you are selling. A lot of us, especially coming through the changes that we're seeing right now, we need to spend some time on some research, development, innovation. Is there any kind of maybe magic wand or magic indicator of saying that at least of the 80% of your time you spend on your current business and the other 20 you spend on future business as kind of exploration? Is there any kind of maybe some reflection that you have seen with businesses that you have worked around with?
It's a very good question. I don't think there is an answer like 5% on advertising because it depends on your business. If you are in the business of inventing new things like Elon Musk, for example, you're going to be putting 80% of your time into innovation. If you're in the business of running an insurance company, it's probably going to be less than that. However, I do want to give you this principle in answer to your question, Impo, on product development or spending time in the laboratory or new product development, is that very often entrepreneurs dream up an idea and then spend years wasting money on developing their idea, as opposed to dreaming up an idea and talking to customers about it and finding out if customers really want it and finding out how customers would improve the idea and then developing the idea. In other words, make sure that your ideas are wanted by your marketplace. So for me, what really does cut down wasted time in the laboratory and improve efficiencies at new product development is being in the marketplace and developing your ideas from the perspective of the customer, not from the perspective of your own wish.
Thanks for that direction. I think that leaves a lot of thought into, especially, I think maybe it's also looking at the market conditions when things are changing. Maybe it might require you to tilt that time and actually start looking at things that you need to do, given the market or the changes in the market or the opportunities that you might see in the market. Any other questions? I don't want to hog the mic, but I still have another second question, if there's no other questions. And I think the classic question has always been, and maybe just leaning on to the leadership part, is how much of the business brand versus your leadership brand do you develop? How much do you sing or beating the drum about self, or how do you balance that to beating the drum about the business? And I think maybe there might be a strategic way of looking at it, depending on what you are wanting to build. Do you build Gordon or do you build Bateleur?
It's a very good question. And again, and obviously it does depend on your business. The founders of Lever Brothers, nobody even knows their names. Lever Brothers and Nestle are made up of many, many very, very famous brands. I believe ultimately, however, that the answer to your question is that you should build the brand Bateleur, not the brand Gordon, in most businesses, because all businesses should have the objective of outliving their founder. A business has no end, but we do have ends as human beings. We do pass away eventually. So ultimately, you've got to be seeing your way clear to building a brand that is bigger than you and beyond you. And it might be that for a period of time, you are the brand as you establish those relationships, but don't let it rest on you alone for too long, because otherwise you'll find yourself unable to take your business any further as you get older and the people around you are younger and you are no longer relevant to them. So the answer to your question ultimately is, in most businesses, build the brand, not the person or the founder.
Awesome. Mangaliso, I hope it's a difficult question. I just want to work for it a little bit here. Go ahead.
Gosh, now you made me lose my train of thought. But would you say that some people can become entrepreneurs or business people and others can't, definitely? Or do you believe that everyone can be an entrepreneur or a business person? And the context I'm coming from is 44% or 34%, depending on how you define this unemployment crisis we have in South Africa. And if you look around the world, we talk about the unemployed, or to solve an unemployment problem, you've got to create more small, medium enterprises to employ people or to create opportunities for people. And in South Africa, we are not creating enough small, medium enterprises. And therefore the question is, do you think then that more people can become entrepreneurs, or everyone can become an entrepreneur? It's just a matter of choice. Is that difficult enough, Mpo?
It's a lovely question.
I think you've raised the bar. Yes, that's
Okay.
awesome.
Right.
So let me try and answer your question. The very fact that most people who can't find a job are gainfully employed in their own business, even if it's selling vegetables on the side of the road, proves that anybody can become an entrepreneur. The number of people that I know who have lost their jobs, especially in South Africa, in their 50s, they lose their jobs. They've been employed in a big company for their whole life, and then suddenly they retrenched and they die. They don't know what they're going to do, and their world collapses. And within 3 or 4 months, they started a little business. And then 4 years later, they say to me, you know what, Gordon, I don't know why I didn't do this 30 years ago. I must have been crazy to work for Standard Bank for all these years when I should have been doing my own business. Most people think they can't be entrepreneurs, but I believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur. In other words, most people are carry around in their minds a mental block. It's like, have you noticed that a lot of people say, I can't do maths, I'm not a mathematician. I can't play music, I'm not a musician. Well, trust me, you can, because maths and music, they only require one thing. It's called practice. You practice an instrument, and you practice maths, you'll be able to do maths and play music. It's the same as being an entrepreneur. If you're forced to do it, you find that you are able to do it. And, you know, we can take ourselves to tragic scenarios of, you know, if you go back to the Second World War, millions of people were displaced, their homes bombed, out on the street, surviving in the winters of the world with nothing. They survived. And entrepreneurism is, you know, in a way, survival without the comfort of employment is entrepreneurism. So, yes, I believe I'm absolutely convinced that the only reason why people believe that they can't be entrepreneurs is a self-imposed limitation. It's a negative self-belief, just like I can't do maths or I can't play music.
I agree with you 100%. It seems you kind of know me because you keep referring to banking and Standard Bank specifically. When I left Standard Bank 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, really, I was like, why didn't I do this for a long time? I'd been there for 11 years.
I didn't know that. Umpo did tell me that one of our guests today was in the banking world, but I didn't notice you. But there we go. You've just told the story that I've just told. But you are the story, Mangaliso.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, no wonder Tlhogi had to phone me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's insights. That's insights. Any other questions? And I think maybe Gordon, the answer that you just had was really saying there is a possibility if you just think hard enough. And maybe just as before I call on somebody to ask the question, one other question would be maybe from your desk as you're watching the barometers of what's happening nowadays. We've got a big number that has been floating around in terms of the level of unemployment. I guess one would actually love to see a dashboard where there is unemployment on one side. As unemployment is rising, then there is also a rise in the number of new registrations of new businesses. Is there any such indicator that is happening right now? And unfortunately, maybe as a country, we don't look at the dashboard that way. We're just crying about the unemployment.
There's no doubt that the official statistics on unemployment are going up. There is a lag effect. I think COVID has artificially changed things. A lot of people have been retrenched. A lot of people have had salary cuts. A lot of people are now going for 2 jobs. The unemployment stats are very difficult to get real perspective on because there are some people who've got 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and there are other people who are not even have got no jobs, but are working and making a lot of money, in fact. So I honestly don't know the answer to the question, but my sense is that there are pressures to increase entrepreneurism. There have been pressures for a long time in our country, political and economic pressures. and cultural pressures towards self-employment. And I think that the faster we get there, we accede to those pressures. Let the pressure out. Let's get entrepreneurial. And I would be voting for a government that put a manifesto together for education and for support for entrepreneurism, tax breaks on entrepreneurism, helping people find a way to make a living in a small and humble way to start with. And there are many examples overseas of thriving economies that aren't dominated by big business. We are still dominated by big business. We are. And so I'm very much in favor of the education party and the SME party from a political perspective. And I think that the next decade will see a lot more young people being forced to find ways to earn their own living because they're just not getting employed. Can I tell you, I think Mangaliso, you had your name. I want to tell you another true story. This is a true story. About 6 weeks ago, or about 8 weeks ago, I went for my first vaccination, COVID vaccination, there at Discam in Four Ways Mel. And my wife came with me and to help me. And on the way out, I got to the machine where you pay for your parking, and there was a young guy there in uniform in a yellow jacket, and he had glasses on. And I greeted him. And he greeted me back again. And I said to him, just by the way, I'm curious, you stand here next to this machine. Here's a car guard, you know. I said to him, tell me something. Will you stand here? Do people greet you much? Or do people just walk by you as though you don't exist? He said to me, you know what? The truth is that most people don't see me. It's like I'm invisible standing here. And I got talking to him further. And he was quite well spoken, and I figured that he was probably a student and that he was a car guard, you know, earning extra money. And so I said to him, so what are you studying? And he looked at me, he said, no, I'm not studying. I'm a graduate. I'm a graduate from UJ. I've got a degree in tourism. And I said to him, why are you a car guard? And he said, no, well, I was working for Airlink last year and I was retrenched through COVID. So I've got no alternative here. And I said, where do you live? He said, I live in Cosmo City. And the long or the short was that the next day I arranged for Tsepo to have an interview with my production manager in our business. And today Tsepo is employed as a young graduate in Bateleur. He's only been with us a month. And he is just such a star. Now, I said to my wife, as we left that pay machine, I said to her, I wonder how many other people in South Africa are working as car guards with degrees in their pockets.
Wow,
So,
what a reality.
That's a true story, current true story in our own country. And that's why I say the pressure is on. The next decade is going to see many young people forced to find their own way of making a living. So let's go, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. I'm so glad you're sharing this, really.
Yeah,
it's really encouraging on what impact that as an entrepreneur you can do, because remember, you can't take those decisions if you are under the corporate to decide that I'll just hire this person and give that person a chance. So that's very interesting and very encouraging. Thanks, Gordon, for sharing.
And you know, Pums, I'll tell you something else. Remember, I talked about leadership and empathy and showing care for people. If you go to Bateleur's Facebook page, you will see an article recently published where Tsepo was interviewed. Have a read what Tsepo has to say about how he felt to be swept off his feet as a car guard and included in our company. And, you know, we put something on Facebook just about every day or every second day. I just saw the stats in my meeting yesterday with our PR agency. Not one single publication have we ever published has had so much traction with the marketplace as Tsepo, the car guard, now a researcher story. You see, people are hungry. They're hungry for stories of empathy.
Yeah, wow, no. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think also maybe Gordon, that's a good point, and to Pumza's point in terms of that's a great story and the way she reacted to that story also. I think we need to look at those stories, and I know that for Bongi there are those stories of how people's lives being turned around. Pumza, you've got stories of people that you have brought into your business. Memas Kaba, looking at the humble beginnings of actually packing ginger yourself. There's a good story there. And I know that for Shohi, there's a story which I know very well of a lady who essentially came, she was a helper. And right now she is one of the long-standing members in the bakery who didn't know how to make bread. Right now she knows everything. And she's better than the pastry chefs without, to your reference earlier on, Gordon, without the MBA, but with learning from experience and learning from other students who are coming from the pastry chef schools who come into the business. And she's just overseeing and just trying to learn. And now she's becoming better than everybody else. So there are those stories. And I think maybe one of the good points is how do we then go around making those stories real? Because those stories are also part of the brand building of the business. Is how do we, and maybe it's a challenge for everyone to say, how do we tell those stories as much as we tell the story about our products? Because people are not only just buying our products, they're also buying the business behind it. So if the business is also doing good, there's also that lineage towards, I'd rather support this business because it's got a good story. It is creating a change or making a positive impact. Bongi, I'm gonna pick on you. Have you arrived?
Not yet, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna pick on you, either a question or a comment, but it's fine if you're still in transit.
If you guys can hear me, I don't mind. I can talk.
Loud and clear.
I just wanted to say, when Doctor is speaking about Sabu's story, I'm actually getting goosebumps. I don't know why. But regarding the topic or the conversation he had with us, the cash flow issue stands out for me. I remember when I started in business, I had a mentor. So he's a friend of a friend. He is 25 years in the building, in the business. They manufacture Georgia Tech. So I decided, okay, let me go sit with him and just get some pairs of wisdom or advice since I'm starting this journey. And the first thing he said to me is respect cash flow, Bongi, because there's a lot of businesses that get out of business, not because they don't know what they're doing, but because they cannot manage their cash flow properly. So when Dr. Gordon talks about it again today, 3 years into the business, I have actually also realized that becomes the biggest boss of us all. We enjoyed the conversation with my driver here. We're having so much fun. He actually enjoyed more where Doc is saying they are one of my bosses. So thank you so much for today. It was amazing. It's just a pity that I'm listening from the car, but it's nice and clear. I think I've got everything that God intended me to get from this conversation today. So thank you so much to our leader, Mr. Ledwaba. I almost answered when we were asked the biggest leader in the history of our country. I almost said we also have our own Madiba in this team. So thank you so much. Every time you organize, you always come. Thank you, Doc, and thank you, Mr. Ledwaba, for organizing. It was awesome listening to. And for me, especially during this time of COVID where we are so demotivated, it's so refreshing to listen to a conversation that is not around COVID, is not around how much we're struggling. You know, it's positive, it's giving us hope. So for that, thank you so much. And unfortunately, I cannot put on my video again because I'm still on the road. Apologies for that.
No problem. Thank you very much, Bongi. I think, yeah, those are very humbling words. I shall forever remain humble with those words. But I think just as a, maybe not to stretch it too far. Can we just have some maybe words in closure, comments, anything? And I like it when some people are saying, this is the piece that I'm taking from the conversation. Just to remind everybody, remember that nobody's going to hold you to the conversations we've had, but it is up to you to find the right words, the right pieces of wisdom that most probably ring true to you, and most probably you can put them into practice. But most importantly, as part of learning, let's do a review. Come back, tell us, this is what I've done with the piece that I've taken from the conversation. I think it is in those conversations where there is validation in terms of we are adding value to one another. And it's not only just one street or one person giving value to others, but it's everybody. All your contributions to one another are helping out, and that's how we grow one another. Pumza, do you want to say something in closing, or maybe I'll just ask Matlakhono to say something in closing without hogging the mic? Nothing from your side? No questions? Oh, the voice is gone. Sorry. Yeah, the voice is gone. Members Chaba, anything from your side? Let me just go around the room. If there is nothing there, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe it's still sinking in. There's just too much that we just got right now. Pumza, anything in closing? Nothing?
No, my biggest, actually the takeaway, it's more like, it's very funny because it's on the area where when you just started, when you started about the debts and managing the debts, and the funny part is that you mentioned about anxiety, that you will have this big business, but if it's highly indebted, you struggle anxiety, and it's what I've went through, and it helped me. I think I started late last year to decide that maybe this business doesn't want me to run it on debt. So even though the business, when people are advising you about cash flow, they'll say no, especially as a retailer, they'll say no, take stock on consignment from your suppliers. It helps with the cash flow. But for me, the minute I know that I owe somebody, the anxiety starts, and I become very dysfunctional, because it's a very biggest part of me to maintain my mental state for this business. So I started, I was talking to Chabi that, you know what, I don't want to take stock on credit anymore, because my business doesn't want that. God doesn't want me to run a business like that. They want me to pay my suppliers so that I can be comfortable selling these things, because when I owe them, I feel really, it's a very funny spiritual thing. I just don't feel, it doesn't feel right for me. So it's a very interesting thing to coming from somebody so experienced, that you are so experienced. I mean, but now I have something that I can relate to that you just said. Thanks so much for that.
Wow, I think the cash flow debt. Oh, Nyaniso, you the accountant, you keep us honest, some of us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for including me in this conversation, firstly. And I will not come as an accountant, but I will also just acknowledge I'm a firm believer of doing good while doing business. I'm a firm believer of building your team, building your clients as well, and everyone around you, and making a meaningful impact. So I was quite taken by I'm hoping, you know, it obviously it's 1 month after employing the gentleman you met at the parking lot, but that's quite commendable on my side. It's one of those things I commend, and it's reassuring to know there are other entrepreneurs who are responsible citizens too, and who look after and who believe in doing good while doing business. That's basically all I have to say.
I like the way you put that, doing good while doing business. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
Yes, over to you. You wanted a comment.
My voice is a bit scratchy. I think for me, I think your story of the parking lot, I can relate a lot with that, because I've been taking a lot of people from the streets, and then you realize that they've got potential. And when you talk to them, you realize that they are not in the streets because they have a choice, but they didn't. And then you talk to them, you realize that these people are qualified. I think just recently, I think same story as yours. A month ago, I had to let a lady go who was a very good chef into our studio because of dishonesty, theft, and other stuff. So I had to let her go. And I needed assistance, but then outside of our complex, there are ladies that are holding placards. So, and then I went there, and then my intuition said that one. And then that lady was, when you ask her to do something, she's doing it diligently. And, and then we started talking, and then I started asking her, like the way you're doing stuff, like it looks like you've got some sort of experience, but why are you doing there? Why are you sitting there and with the placard that says I do washing, and then you get 100 rand or 150 a day? He says, I've got to feed my kids. I'm the breadwinner. And then sitting at home and feeling sorry for myself won't help me with anything. And over and above that, I'm a qualified nurse, but I can't get a job. And I've worked in a restaurant, and that's where I have learned the craft of making certain. She makes the most scrumptious sandwiches ever, and like everything that she touches. So hence we say, sometimes we look at people and then we're thinking that, but there's a story behind why they're doing what they're doing, and it's just from us to have that heart, to be able to listen also. And try and assist where you can. And I think another thing is that, sometimes, as one thing that I've learned, and I've learned the hard way as an entrepreneur, is that, even when you're supposed to let people go, because you know their background, you feel sorry for them and the business suffers. And I think for me, I've learned the hard way. And I think when you talked, I could take that to say, in business, whatever that you do, make sure that you don't overdo it, that it harms the business, and also you don't do less so that it harms the business. There needs to be a balance. So I think from my journey, I have, I think up until COVID, where I had to learn, and there was a time when I was still in corporate and still running the business, and then even when things went wrong, I could subsidize the business because I had a salary that I could do up until that time when I left. And I realized that, like I think my biggest downfall as a leader is that I think I feel too much sorry for people that, because their backgrounds and stuff, even when they do wrong, you keep on believing that they would change, and that harmed the business. And I have learned the hard way. And it's one thing that when people are talking about issues that they have with employees, I'll be able to share my experiences without maybe telling them to let the person go, but telling what this did to the business, how it affected my business, how it affected the cash flow, because it really, really was not good for me as a person, for my mental well-being, because every time I'll be stressing about this person, but not letting them go. And it was costing the business more, because I think also as entrepreneurs, we also need to balance that, and we end up losing. And sometimes we close businesses because of decisions that we make, like these, of feeling sorry for people and thinking that when you let somebody go, you are a bad person.
Wow. Ooh, some lessons. Okay.
Just to comment on that one.
Yeah.
Just to comment on that one. We do make mistakes. We do sometimes get the wrong people in our company, and it is impossible to make it work. As a leader, you have to then take a tough decision, because if you don't, then you're letting down the other people in your organization. So sometimes we do have to, unfortunately, let people go, as you talk of it. We obviously should do it in the most humane possible way, but it's wrong for a leader to put up with performance that is destructive to the company and destroys other people's opportunities. And that's the balance that you're talking about. It is very difficult.
Colleagues, friends, family, I think we're over the 8 o'clock mark, as usual. I don't want us to get to 9 o'clock as per usual. But Gordon, I just want to say thank you very much for hitting the call. I know that you're one of those people. I didn't warn you in advance. It was just a very short notice, not less than a week, and you actually said that I would be glad to be part of the conversation. But also, if I'm looking at the sharing that you have done selflessly so with some of the lessons, thank you very much for sharing those wisdom nuggets that most probably, if anything else, we'll be hearing some testimonies of how it has helped somebody. And that has been the practice with us here. We will be sharing, and thank you very much for allowing us to share also the information with others who couldn't make it. We will be sharing the information with others, but also would like to believe that you are one of our friends, and we will call you again in the future. Also just to listen, and we're really looking forward to opportunities where we would meet in person. But also, I think in future, you will be finding some of your clients from this group. When we are growing, when we are doing market research, you'll be helping us with putting those packages together, as well as building our businesses. But we look up to you as one of our partners. We look up to you as one of us, where you share with us, we share with you also. And we'd like to say thank you very much, and we'll be sending something on the post for you just to say thank you. We'll find a way to get it to you just to say thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I need nothing in return from it, except for the friendship that we have already struck with some new people here. And Impo, you and I have known each other for a long time. And I know the future will bring good fortune in some way to everybody here. As I said, tomorrow morning, I'm going to share this document that I wrote on the Madiba values for an engaged South Africa with Impo, and he will share it with you. And I also am very happy for Impo to share my email address. And if anybody does want my help or to ask me a question, I would be very, very grateful to have the opportunity to help you.
Thank you very much. I think without hogging the system, I know that we're keeping you away from dinner, maybe, Gordon, if you haven't had dinner. Apologies in the house from us for keeping you on the system for such a long time. And also, I think we all have gained something here. It's all to our benefit, all of us. But thank you very much. And I think let's call it a day for now. And then I know the phone calls will be happening tomorrow and stuff like that, and people collaborating. So that's the nature. And then we will be sending the emails with the information, and we'll be sharing the information. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
For today. Cheerio, you keep well, keep safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Mangaliso. Bye, Bongi.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We will share Gordon's email on WhatsApp, and anybody who wants to contact him is more than willing to do that. Yeah.
Super.
Great.
Cheerio.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thanks, great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.